Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Sara Smith with the Going Inward to Pelvic Wisdom series. And today I have with me my incredible, really business partner at this point, but also just incredible friend, Wendie Taylor. And she is really, I love the way she calls herself the non-diet dietitian. And she has gone on an incredible journey of finding food freedom and really shaping what she learned and how she really structured her life, blasting out of the mold, so to speak, and going into a way more free-flowing point of being with that journey. So she's an intuitive eating coach and non-diet dietitian. And she runs an incredible group called Ditching Diets Together on Facebook. But one of the things that Wendie, that I was sharing before we got on, that I want to really dive into and go inward today with Wendie is that I've seen this many times with my clients, where, in myself too, and then you'll, I think, see it potentially with Wendie today. We tend to think, okay, if I just take care of this one thing, then my life is going to be all fine, like all roses, everything's going to work out. If I just start exercising, I'll be fine. If I just eat the right foods, I'll be fine. There are these old patterns that we get into. And what we sometimes forget, I love using the image of a spiral. We forget that while we might have started down here and we've started taking care of some things, we're always moving upward. Yet when there's usually in these transitional points, like when you come around the spiral on the right or you come around the spiral on the left, depending on how you're looking at it, once we hit that spot, we feel as if we've gone backwards, when really we're actually just at a higher level. So it means that Wendie, what we're going to get into is that Wendie's had this great journey with her business and her self and her relationship with her body and with the nutrients and nourishment around her, and how some of those same patterns are still coming back again now for her to learn from. So Wendie, tell us a little bit about you and kind of go from there after what I just described.
Yeah, it was interesting. I was listening as you were describing it. So first of all, thanks for having me here, and hello to anybody watching. Yeah, I'm a non-diet dietitian. It wasn't always that way, but now I've come to a place where I help women heal their relationships with food and their body, and really help them process in their brains or think differently about food and their body than they always have. So that's the biggest piece of intuitive eating, and I love it. And you were talking about the spiral. I'm actually I love that terminology, or that analogy of the spiral, spiraling up. And I first heard it in a book by Rebecca Scritchfield, who is a non-diet dietitian, and she talks about the spiral up. So many times I see women spiral down, like when they get on the scale, and it becomes like how they feel about themselves from that point on that day, based on what the scale said. So a number on the scale is defining like their day, and it's just a downward spiral from there. So I do the same thing with my clients. I'll talk about how can we take one choice, and in Rebecca's book, Body Kindness, she talks about making choices through kindness, and I'll talk to my clients about making choices through self-care, not control or restriction, which is diet brain. I talk about diet brain a lot with my clients. So it's getting out of diet brain and getting into that, making choices from self-care, body kindness to start spiraling up and out, like you were saying. So, and that has been a journey for me.
So it sounds like, can I ask a question real quick?
Mm-hmm.
So if I was to really simplify it, it sounds like diet brain is almost kind of that like devil on your shoulder, like hate, that mean girl inside.
Yeah.
Is that kind of what you're describing? Whereas then there's this whole other brain that you help your clients access. And it sounds like you had to go through this too. to be very kind with your just day-to-day actions.
Yeah, and it's funny how you said diet brain is like the devil on your shoulder. I was having this workshop the other night. I have a membership, and once a month we have a workshop, and I had a workshop this past week, and we were talking about diet culture. I talk about diet culture a lot, and what that really is I was talking to this lady, and I said, you know what? The easiest way to explain it is it's the devil. I mean, it really is.
Yeah.
We're oppressed. It keeps us down. It keeps us in black and white thinking when we need to live in the gray, and we need to be more flexible, and we need to be kind and caring and compassionate to ourselves. But that's really hard to do without some support and some guidance.
No one's taught us that. Like,
No.
who's teaching that? We are. But like, I mean,
we didn't learn it in school, and
it's very unfamiliar. And I don't know about you, but I'm curious. I've found that even some people that or professionals that I feel like I should trust with that, as I start kind of digging deeper, there's still a lot of that negative black and white brain there. It's not as
it is. It's not simple. And for me, I realized, well, first of all, I've had recently several dietitians come into the group or be connected with me that have been my cohorts, people that I did the internship with, people that I've met along my journey. And now they're like, I had one of them direct message me the other day, and she said, she was watching her husband and kids. She was making breakfast for them, and she was crying because she couldn't eat with them because she had just stepped on the scale. And, when I tried to talk to her, and I was like, reach out, like, talk to me. Let's schedule a time to talk. And she said, join the membership. And she said, do I have to tell people my profession? So there's this like deep, almost dark oppression in my profession because we're taught to help people get disordered eating, eating disorders.
How did you identify that in yourself? Like, when did you really start to notice? Like,
honestly, I started hearing the term intuitive eating, and I was heavy in diet culture myself. I was walking clients down the road to diet culture, but what I was noticing was it wasn't, I wasn't seeing the results that I wanted to see with them, and I was trying to help them, and so it was very frustrating for me because I'm leading people down that path. I'm leading them in the downward spiral. They would start to spiral down, and I didn't know how to help them spiral up because all I knew how to do was give them a meal plan or, tell them about what macronutrients they needed to fix in their diet. What I do now is so beyond that, but I guess when I was stuck in it, I didn't see it myself. And actually through this same mastermind that we met, Sara, I was reconnected with a dietitian that I hadn't spoken to in 10, 15 years. She was she showed up in the mastermind, and her and I connected again. But I remember back in 2000, it was probably 5, 6 years ago. Okay. So maybe it's we had spoken, but I hadn't really. We used to live in the same town. I met her. We were very good friends, and then she had family, and so we kind of like went our separate ways. I moved states away, but we had talked in about 5 or 6 years ago when she told me about this book, Intuitive Eating, and that was really the last time I talked to her till I saw her again in this mastermind. It was weird.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, she's doing that now too.
Wow.
She's a non-diet dietitian in North Carolina.
Wow.
I wasn't at the time, and she was just getting out of her internship. They didn't tell. So we met in a pharmaceutical. She's a pharmaceutical sales, and I was in medical sales. And we met in a doctor's office, and we both just come through divorce, and we were both runners. So that's how we met and started. So here we are. Literally, that was in 2005. So 16 years later, she is a non-diet dietitian,
got chilled.
and I am in this mastermind.
Yeah.
And
I have to
so
stop you just for a second, because I think we don't give enough credit sometimes to these seemingly insignificant moments that are the spark to the fire, right? Like, again, this the pelvis is really where we kind of, when we get grounded into there, and sometimes we don't get grounded into there until we're not feeling great, right? But we don't know the answers. And so that's the little spark that you needed. My husband calls it a beatific vision. I call it just a God moment or a synchronistic event where, you know, we don't really understand the importance of it at the moment. But then, and I love how 2005 to 2020, you know, that again talks about that spiral, right? Whereas we expect, bam, it's just this process and ta-da, you've arrived. Like, here's Wendie, she's able to help so many people and she knows all this wonderful stuff, and like, oh, it's just so easy for her. And we forget that it's been a journey of undoing, you know.
A total journey of undoing. And when we spoke it was probably in 2015, which was, you know, I hadn't talked to her in forever. We didn't speak again after that till I saw her in the collective. She said she was just out of her dietetic internship, and she had called me because, you know, she went from pharmaceuticals to try to go back and be a dietitian. And here I was the pantry doctor at the time, and I was, you know, creating detoxes and writing books on, you know, gut health and how to decrease inflammation by cutting out foods. Everything that's complete opposite of what I do now. And she called me up and we were talking because she was asking me about being a dietitian. And here she was fresh out of her internship. And then she said, there's this book called Intuitive Eating. She starts telling me about it. And I'm like, it didn't make sense to me. Like, I understand when people come into my group now and they don't get it.
Okay, so you're like, even, so was there even like a little bit subconsciously that kind of perked your ears, do you think? Even though all of you was kind of like, this is like
she definitely planted a seed. Okay. And then I remember being in this almost internal battle or struggle because I bought the book and I read it. Ooh. And it went against everything that I was doing. And so there was this internal battle with myself, that I could still help people eat intuitively and lose weight and lead with weight loss. And I'm a dietitian. And then I had this, like, it was my ego, right?
It's scary too. Everything that we know, that I love how you said an internal battle, because it's, you are doing the hard work of rewiring, and can be scary.
It was. I was actually collaborating, much like us with the Gift of Freedom. I was collaborating with a fitness trainer, and I remember in our planning sessions together, the more and more I started practicing intuitive eating and its principles, and I started to pull back on the whole, like, premise of our program that we were building. And I was like, you know, really having these conversations with her about, like, I really don't want to lead with weight loss. I want to lead with self-care. We were incorporating self-care, but it wasn't intuitive eating and living. It wasn't based on those values. It was still very heavily entrenched in diet culture and meal planning and the fitness program that you had to follow. And it just wasn't aligning with me at all. And that's when I made the decision to step away from doing that work with her.
And was that easy?
Ultimately,
because I don't think we give enough credence to what it's like to, like, shed off an old us and then have to emerge into a new. So I'm just like, talk about like what that was like to have to choose, not have to, but, you know, to choose to make some of those difficult decisions.
That was part of the journey of growth. And that's why I think I can be so compassionate to the other dietitians that are in that same battle right now.
Yeah.
Because we've been taught a certain way. And for me, it was very public. Like I had this blog, I was on TV once a month. I had a segment where I would go on and show people how to make a new green smoothie or how to do this bikini body workout. And here I am trying to like step away from that. And I had created people like would see me in town and be like, oh, you're the pantry doctor. Like, but I had to break that. And that was really, I held on to that for a long time with like, well, how can I switch and start teaching people intuitive eating?
Yeah.
And I still had the pantry doctor hanging over me. It took me a long time to separate from everything that I had built as a business. So it's like, as a business, I was this person. And I mean, it was hard. It was almost like I had to just
one
shut
day
it down.
Yeah.
And start fresh.
I want to stop you there for a second though, because again, it's so vital, I think, for all of us to hear what you're sharing right now, is that it takes time. And so you may personally know internally that something is shifting and something's growing, but as that seed is beginning to grow and really start to bloom, it's not until it actually blooms. And that may take years for you to see, to finally where it becomes, you know, it's like the example of the chrysalis, like it becomes, there's a beautiful poem, who wrote that, where it's just, it's painful to be held in much longer. And it sounds like eventually it needed to be a clean break because it was just too painful to stay where you are. But that process takes time.
And I can't explain it now, but that made me who I am and the dietitian that I am today.
Wow.
If I had not gone through all that, I wouldn't be able to share all this, and I wouldn't be able to help other people. So
yeah,
when I'm getting emotional here, but when I hear other dietitians tell me they cannot join their family for breakfast,
yeah,
it's just sad,
okay.
You know?
Yeah.
And I want them to be at a place where I am, of freedom, right?
Yes.
So gift of freedom. It's, I just want them to break away from that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I want to hold space, and I appreciate your vulnerability and your truth right now, because it's very courageous. These beliefs that we learn, and usually that have a stronghold on us. It might be about our profession, right? Or about our body, or it might be about success or money, or, whatever. They have a stronghold on us, and usually they come from, usually it's a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
Right? We all have them. And some of them are more easier to see than others. But in your vulnerable sharing, what it is once you've broken free of a coping mechanism, and they show up again, which we'll talk about in a second, there's so much love. Like when you have this expansion inside of yourself, and also when you can still relate, right? Like you can relate to that moment that she was vulnerable and courageous enough to share with you, of, I know what that feels like to stand in that kitchen and to feel so separate and so disconnected and trying so hard to feel good. And when you have that key
to be perfect.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, I feel like
oh, please go ahead.
so much of this is removing that need to be perfect. I'm
Oh,
sorry, I'm sorry. I feel like so much of this is just removing that need to be perfect.
yes.
And I'm a recovering perfectionist in
Me
so
too.
many areas of my life.
So let's talk about the other areas of your life.
And it's okay. It's okay to admit that, you know?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. You know, so you and I actually have a similar journey in that the food, the nutrition, the self-care piece, we've been focusing there, and now we both in our own ways, now the journey, right, the perfectionism is showing up in other ways. I certainly know that it's showing up in my business, and um, you and I have worked a little bit together too. how is it how is that perfectionism still trying to come in for you now, and what's that been like to kind of be like, dang it, I do this with my clients. Like, why is it coming in again?
I think that it's something we all struggle with. It's that black and white thinking. Okay. Whereas once I had that with food and I overcame that, then there's your body, then there's your work, then there's
Yeah.
like this area of your life, and you're trying to find, I guess, just like I realized life's too short. I realized that with food, life's too short to restrict yourself from the foods that you love. And you helped me, Sarah, with this. As a recovering perfectionist, I took that black and white thinking. And when I met you, we talked about this. Like it was an intensive, mastermind, and we learned a lot. And through that, I found myself falling back into those perfectionist tendencies, the black and white thinking, getting caught up in comparison, put a lot of pressure on myself, even to the point where I just recently went through like a life transition, and we moved states away, and I'm getting settled, and I'm 3 weeks in, and I'm down here, and where we're now in Florida, and it's been hard, like we went 3 weeks without furniture. Trying to get our furniture, living on camping chairs, eating from, like, I'm used to cooking. I love cooking. Here we are, like, eating takeout for 3 weeks. It was just this moment when I realized, like, you have to go with the flow. This is just a season. We met, and through that, I knew I'd need to meet with you. I was like, let's get me through this, because my perfectionist tendencies are coming out again here. Maybe not with food, with my body, but you know what
They
I
come back.
realized, Sarah? I woke up this morning. Yes, it comes back in another area. But I tell you what, since I have gotten my furniture and my house is unboxed and a bit in order, I noticed something. I had this strict structure with my time schedule in North Carolina, South Carolina. Yeah, I would get up, and it was almost like you hear it online. You got to have a morning routine. And so, the morning routine has to be journaling, exercise, reading the Bible, devotion, all of the things. And I was like, check, 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 check. My morning routine became what food was. And I'm like judging myself if I didn't get through everything in my morning routine before get my day. My day wasn't I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. So I've been to Florida. I realized that, you know what, like I did with life's too short to keep restricting myself from foods I enjoy. Life's too short to not sleep an extra hour and wake up feeling refreshed. And who cares if I didn't get XYZ done in that time period?
Yeah.
And I sat there this morning before we hopped on our call, and I did nothing. I wrote in the journal because I wanted to. And I sat in the sunshine and I sipped coffee with my cats. And I'm like, you know what? doing the things in my morning routine, and it was wonderful. And I'm like, life's too short not to just sip coffee with your cats.
Yeah. So fantastic.
So I'm feeling a growth. I'm feeling growth in that area of my life too, that area of perfection. And this is actually, you didn't realize, last time we spoke, it was mid-move. And I think that this is a growth. The move was part of a growth process for me, I think.
100%.
In my journey.
You, I remember our last client call very well. And, one of the beautiful things that's required in order for the work to work is your willingness to listen, right? And so you were ready for seeing, like, hold on, this is a test, and this is also an opportunity. And how can we harness this, for your good and for practice and that kindness, right? So if we go back to the beginning of our conversation, it's like we can either, negative, this isn't working, what's wrong with me? Why can't I keep it all together? That perfectionist beast that like comes up definitely in times of stress, or we can come with this kindness, being who part of us, we call that up. You just shared some beautiful examples of that, and even how you now see how even your schedule that you worked really hard to invite flow into back in North Carolina and South Carolina was still very rigid. Look at you. I love it.
It was. I was putting a lot of pressure. Yeah. And ultimately I think it goes back to changing my way of thinking. Yeah. I guess that's what it goes back to.
And that all starts with radical awareness, right? Like being willing to, well, you were really willing to take a chance on working with me some. I don't label myself as a business, coach or mentor or whatever. And, so you were willing to take a hand, into this new step, and then how to do it, right? Once you do it one time in one area, it becomes so much more efficient in future areas. We get really worried, like, oh no, I'm going back down the spiral. But the truth is that we're already up the spiral. Thank you so much, Wendie, for just all of your courage today and your truth. I really, really appreciate you sharing this with us.
You're welcome. I guess if I had to leave it with one thing, I would say that women like that I interact with and coach and that come into the Ditching Nights Together group is I see so many of them still. I hold back and want to stick their heads in the sand, thinking that maybe they just need more motivation, more willpower, or they're just not being consistent enough. And if they just work harder, they'll get there. And it's not at all flexible. So if I could get anything from this, it's that they need more compassion and they need to give themselves more space.
Just got chills again. Wow.
I'm going inward, Sarah.
Oh, you're just moving inward. Woo! Thank you so much for this. Can you share,
You're welcome.
Just real quickly, kind of just what we have going on and how women can continue to, just be with you. So
first off, yes. So Sara and I have a lovely, luxurious virtual retreat coming up in May. We send you a box full of goodies that you can use throughout the weekend with us. But if any of this stuff resonated with you, if you feel like you're stuck or you need to be all these things like consistent, or you need motivation, or I guarantee you you just need some guidance and some supportive, loving sisterhood, and that's what we want to provide you in this container of a weekend in May. And so we have lovely, like, guided meditations, support for mindful meal times. I'm going to teach you some of the principles of intuitive eating and how I incorporate them in my life. Sara is going to teach you how to go inward and tune back into your body and what it wants and what it needs. And so if you resonate with this, please join us. And if you want to learn more about specifically food and your body and how you can let go of that rigid black and white thinking and learn how to live in the gray, then come join us in Ditching Diets Together, my Facebook group. I'd love to see you there.
I'll put all of that in these show notes too. Wendie, thank you so much for today.
Thank you, Sara.
Very, very special. Take care.
We'll share.
Oh, please go.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
I was going to say I'll share this too when you get it. So just let me know. All right. Have a good day, guys.
Was going inward to pelvic wisdom with me, Dr. Sara Smith. I really enjoyed everybody being here. Thank you for watching. And please share if this has impacted you in any way.